The planet was a strange one, full of vast deserts and towering mountains that touched the skies. The air was thin, and the sun burned like a fiery ball in the sky. But this place was not unknown to human explorers. A small group had landed there to investigate strange signals coming from the surface. Among the explorers was Ethan. He was young, but his heart was filled with ambition. He wanted to be the first human to discover life beyond Earth. His team had been on the planet for 2 weeks, but they hadn't found anything until today. As they wandered deeper into the desert, Ethan noticed something odd in the distance. A shining object lay in the sand, almost glowing under the harsh sun. The group walked closer, their boots leaving marks in the soft sand. Ethan was the first to reach it. What he found shocked him. It was a capsule unlike anything he had seen before. It was smooth, metallic, and faintly humming, as if alive. "Ethan, what did you find?" One of his teammates, Sarah, called out, rushing over. Ethan carefully knelt beside the capsule, touching it with his gloved hand. The surface was warm, almost as if it had been heated by something inside. With a deep breath, he pressed a small button on the side. The capsule slowly opened, revealing a strange sight. A being, unlike anything they had seen before. It was a humanoid figure, but its skin was a soft shade of green, and its eyes were large, dark, and reflective like the night sky. Its long hair shimmered in the light, and it seemed to breathe softly as if it was in a deep sleep. Ethan froze. He had discovered an alien. "Sarah, you have to see this," Ethan whispered. Sarah stepped forward, her eyes wide with shock and wonder. "Is it alive?" Before Ethan could respond, the alien's eyes slowly opened. They locked onto him, and for a moment, neither of them moved. The air was thick with tension, and Ethan felt his heart race. The alien blinked, then slowly sat up, its lips parted, and a soft musical voice filled the air. "Who are you?" the alien asked, its voice gentle yet powerful. Ethan could barely speak. His mind raced with questions. "I'm Ethan. We come from Earth. We've never seen anyone like you." The alien studied him for a moment. Then, as if deciding something, in its mind it stood up. It was taller than him, its body graceful and strong. It didn't seem threatening, but there was a sense of power in its presence. "I am a clone," the alien said quietly. "I was created to serve my queen." Ethan blinked. "A clone? Created to serve a queen? What do you mean? Where did you come from?" The clone's expression softened, almost sad. "I was made on the orders of the queen. I am not meant to live freely. I have no purpose, unless the queen commands it." Sarah stepped forward, concern in her eyes. "Where's the queen now? Are you safe?" The clone's eyes dimmed slightly, but it nodded. "I am safe, for now. But I need to leave this place. The queen will want me back." Ethan looked at Sarah, unsure what to do. They had only just arrived on this planet, and now they were faced with an alien who seemed both lost and in danger. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, but something else stirred inside him too, a sense of responsibility. "We can help you," he said, his voice steady. "We'll take you back to our ship, and we'll figure this out together." The alien's eyes widened, and for a moment, Ethan thought he had said something wrong, but then it nodded. "Thank you." Without another word, the group helped the clone to their ship. They were careful not to touch it too much, respecting its strange appearance and the mystery surrounding it. As they climbed back into the ship, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was different now. This encounter was no accident. They had stumbled upon something big, something that could change everything. As the ship lifted off the ground, heading back to their base, Ethan looked out the window at the vast desert. He couldn't stop thinking about the clone. There was something about it that seemed familiar, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Little did he know, this was just the beginning. The real queen, the one who had created the clone, wasn't far behind, and she was going to want answers. The days after finding the alien clone passed slowly, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The clone had settled in, its strange but calm presence becoming part of their small crew. Yet, deep in his heart, Ethan knew the peaceful days would not last long. The clone had mentioned a queen, and Ethan couldn't help but wonder what kind of power she held. It wasn't until one night, when the stars seemed to flicker brighter than ever, that his worries began to feel real. Ethan sat alone in the ship's cockpit, staring out at the endless stretch of space. The stars glittered like diamonds, but they offered no comfort. The ship's lights flickered briefly, and he turned back toward the control panel, his heart racing. "Everything okay, Ethan?" Sarah's voice broke through the silence. Ethan turned to see her standing in the doorway, her eyes full of concern. He smiled weakly, trying to hide the tension in his chest. "I'm fine. Just thinking," he replied, but the worry was clear in his voice. Before Sarah could respond, the ship's alarms blared to life, loud and jarring. The red lights flashed, casting an eerie glow on the walls. Ethan stood up quickly, his heart pounding. "What's happening?" Sarah shouted over the noise. The ship shook violently as if something massive had just hit it. Ethan rushed to the control panel, his hands trembling as he tried to steady the ship. But there was no avoiding the impact. The ship groaned under another heavy blow, and Ethan barely managed to keep it from crashing. Through the shaking, Sarah gripped the doorframe, her eyes wide with fear. "What is that? What's attacking us?" Ethan scanned the monitors, his eyes widening in disbelief. On the display, a massive ship appeared, its dark shape like a shadow against the stars. The ship's weapons were firing, targeting their small vessel without mercy. "It's her," Ethan whispered. The alien queen's ship was here. She had found them. The clone, who had been resting in another part of the ship, suddenly appeared, in the doorway. Its eyes were wide with fear, and it took a step toward Ethan, its voice trembling. "She is here. The queen is here." Ethan's heart sank. "What does she want?" The clone's voice was quiet, filled with sadness. "She wants me, and she will stop at nothing to get me back." Another blast shook the ship, throwing them all to the ground. Ethan's hands flew to the controls, his mind racing. He knew they couldn't outrun the queen's ship. The weaponry was far too advanced, and their ship was no match for it. "Ethan, we need to do something," Sarah shouted, her voice rising in panic. Ethan's mind was racing, but he had no clear answer. They had no weapons, no way to defend themselves. He looked at the clone, whose face was pale with fear. There was something haunting in the way it stared at the screen, as though it knew the queen would not hesitate to destroy them all. "We have to try to escape," Ethan said, determination taking over. He turned the controls, trying to maneuver their ship out of the line of fire. But the queen's ship was too quick, and it hit them again, knocking out their navigation systems. Sparks flew from the control panels. The ship's lights flickered, and then everything went dark. A heavy silence filled the cockpit. Then through the blackness a voice came. A cold, powerful voice that sent a chill down Ethan's spine. "Human," the voice said, echoing through the ship's speakers. "You dare steal from me? You dare hide my property?" Ethan's blood ran cold. The voice belonged to the alien queen. Before he could respond, the sound of a heavy thud echoed through the ship. Then the doors to the cockpit slid open, and there she stood, the queen. She was taller than anything Ethan had ever seen. Her skin was a deep, shimmering purple, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. She was beautiful, but in a way that made Ethan feel small. Her presence was commanding, and even though she stood still, it felt like she was moving toward them. "I gave you my clone," she said, her voice cold and cruel. "And you thought you could keep her? You thought I wouldn't notice?" Ethan stepped back, his mind spinning. "We didn't mean to steal from you. We didn't know she was yours. She was—" "Silence!" the queen hissed, her eyes narrowing. "You have stolen my property, and now you will pay for it." Ethan's heart raced. The clone beside him stepped forward, its voice barely a whisper. I don't belong to you anymore. I belong to him. The Queen's eyes flicked to the clone, then back to Ethan. For a moment, there was nothing but a tense silence. Then with a flick of her wrist, a surge of energy slammed into Ethan, sending him flying back into the cockpit's wall. He gasped for air, struggling to rise. The clone's cries echoed in his mind, but the Queen was already turning her attention to the helpless crew. "You do not understand the power you are dealing with," the Queen said, her voice low and menacing. "I will take back what is mine, and no one will stop me." The Queen's presence was overwhelming. The crew of the small ship was shaken to their core as the alien Queen stood before them, her cold eyes fixed on Ethan. But the tension didn't last long. After delivering her chilling warning, she vanished, as quickly as she had appeared, leaving behind only the sound of her spaceship, retreating into the vast expanse of space. Ethan lay on the floor, his body aching from the blast the Queen had thrown at him. The clone stood frozen, its eyes wide with fear. Sarah rushed over to Ethan, helping him sit up. The entire ship seemed to hum with an eerie quietness, like the calm before a storm. "What do we do now?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Ethan winced, trying to stand, but his legs were shaky. He looked at the clone. "We can't just wait for her to come back. We need to act fast. She will come for us again, and next time, she might not give us a warning." The clone stepped forward, its voice, soft but steady. "You don't understand. The Queen's power is beyond anything you've seen. She will not stop until she gets what she wants. I am her property." "No," Ethan said, his voice firm despite the pain. "You're not her property. You have a choice." The clone shook its head. "I was created to serve her. I cannot choose." But Ethan didn't give up. He stared into the clone's eyes, a mix of determination and compassion in his own. "We can help you. We'll protect you, no matter what it takes." The clone looked away, its face conflicted. But just as Ethan thought he had lost it, the clone took a deep breath. "There is one chance, but it is dangerous." Ethan straightened up, his eyes focused. "What is it?" "There is a group of rebels," the clone said slowly. "They've been fighting the Queen's forces for years. They might be able to help us." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Rebels? A resistance against the Queen's empire? It sounded like a long shot, but at that moment it was their only hope. "Where do we find them?" Ethan asked urgently. The clone hesitated. "I don't know exactly, but I have a contact. Someone who can lead us to them. But the Queen's spies are everywhere. We cannot be seen." Ethan glanced at Sarah. She nodded, her face hardening with resolve. "We don't have a choice. We need to find them." Just as they began to plan their next move, the ship shook violently again. The alarms blared, and a voice came through the ship's speaker, cutting through the noise. Human. The voice was cold, unmistakable. It was the Queen. "You cannot hide from me. You think you can run? You think you can protect what is mine? I will find you and I will destroy you." The ship lurched again as if to emphasize her words. Ethan's stomach twisted. They were being hunted. The Queen wasn't just looking for the clone anymore, she was coming for all of them. "We need to move now," Ethan said quickly, his voice steady. "Clone, do you have any other information? Any way to throw her off our trail?" The clone paused. "I do. There's a hidden station, far from here. It's a place where the rebels meet, a place where the Queen's eyes don't reach. But we have to move fast." Ethan nodded. "Then let's go. We can't afford to stay here any longer." With quick, decisive movements, the crew set their course for the secret rebel station. But they knew the Queen wasn't far behind. The Queen's wrath wasn't something to be taken lightly. Her forces were everywhere, and they could not be certain that the station would be safe. As they left the planet's orbit, Ethan looked out at the vastness of space. He couldn't help but feel like they were walking into a trap. The rebels might help, but there was a good chance the Queen had already predicted their every move. "Stay sharp," he warned the crew. We can't trust anyone out here. Not until we know we're safe. The clone's voice was quiet but resolute. I trust you. I trust that you will protect me. Ethan met the clone's gaze and nodded. But in the back of his mind, doubts crept in. The Queen's reach was long and her power was immense. How could they possibly defeat her? And if they couldn't, what would happen to the clone? To all of them? But one thing was certain, there was no turning back now. The stars stretched out before them, endless and cold. The ship was moving faster now, racing through the void in hopes of outrunning the Queen's forces. Ethan gripped the control panel tightly, his knuckles white from the pressure. Every vibration of the ship felt like a warning. They were being pursued, and no matter how fast they went, they couldn't outrun the Queen forever. We're almost there, the clone said, its voice soft but steady. The rebel station is just ahead. Ethan nodded, but the sense of unease in his stomach hadn't gone away. The Queen was ruthless. If she wanted them, she would find them. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking straight into a trap. As the ship approached the rebel station, the atmosphere on board was tense. Sarah paced back and forth in the small corridor. The clone, standing in the corner, seemed deep in thought, its expression distant. Ethan could hear its soft breathing, but he didn't turn to look. He had too many thoughts racing through his mind. Do you think they'll help us? Sarah finally asked, her voice breaking the silence. I hope so, Ethan replied, though his voice lacked the certainty he wished he could give her. If not, we're in big trouble. The ship's alarm suddenly blared, startling them all. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't a warning of an incoming attack, but something far worse. They've found us, the clone whispered, its voice trembling. Ethan's eyes widened in realization. The Queen's spies. They had infiltrated the rebel station. The rebel base, their supposed safe haven, was no longer secure. The clone's words hung heavy in the air. We're walking into a trap. Ethan, we have to go, Sarah urged, her voice sharp with panic. We need to leave now. But it was too late. The ship shuddered again as a series of heavy blasts hit the shields. The rebels, once their potential allies, had turned on them. The Queen's forces had gotten to them first. Ethan slammed his hand down on the control panel, trying to shield the ship from further damage. Hang on, he shouted, pulling the ship into a sharp dive. The rebel base loomed ahead, but the ship was taking too much damage. Ethan, we can't fight them all, Sarah said, her eyes wide with fear. We need to get out of here. But the clone was not listening. Instead, it moved quickly toward the rear of the ship, its eyes fixed on something in the distance. Ethan turned to follow, but before he could say anything, the clone spoke. You have to leave me. Ethan froze. What do you mean? We're not leaving anyone behind. You don't understand, the clone replied, its voice strained. I'm the reason they're after you. I am the Queen's property. If I stay with you, they will follow you until there's no one left. Ethan's heart sank. The clone was right. As long as it was with them, they would never be safe. The Queen would never stop hunting them. I can't let you do that, Ethan said, his voice tight. We'll figure out another way. The clone's expression softened. There is no other way. You've already given me something I never thought I'd have. A choice. I am free because of you. I don't want to see you all die for me. Ethan stepped forward, gripping the clone's arm. I won't let you sacrifice yourself. But the clone pulled away, its eyes filled with a quiet, painful resolve. It's the only way. Ethan's chest tightened as the clone walked toward the ship's airlock. The sound of gunfire echoed from outside, closer now. The rebels. No, the Queen's agents were closing in. He had to make a choice. He could fight to keep the clone with them, but at what cost? Their chances of surviving were getting slimmer by the second. I'm sorry, the clone whispered, its voice barely audible. I'll never forget you. With that, the clone activated the airlock. The door hissed open, and in one swift motion, it stepped out into the void, disappearing into the darkness of space. Ethan ran toward the airlock, reaching out just too late. The door slammed shut, and he could only watch helplessly as the clone floated away, its form swallowed by the blackness of space. The sound of the ship's alarms and the chaos outside faded into a haunting silence. "Ethan, we need to go, now," Sarah said, her voice small and filled with grief. But Ethan didn't respond. He stood frozen, staring at the spot where the clone had been. His mind was numb, his body shaking with the weight of the decision the clone had made. The ship's engines roared to life as they prepared to make one last desperate escape. But as the ship shot forward, Ethan couldn't help but feel the weight of their loss. The clone had given them a chance to survive, but at a price. The Queen would stop at nothing to find them, but now she had one less reason to hunt them, and Ethan wasn't sure if that made things better or worse. The quiet hum of the ship's engines filled the cabin, but Ethan couldn't shake the silence that weighed heavily on him. The clone's sacrifice still haunted his thoughts, its final words echoing in his mind. "I'll never forget you." They had left the rebel base behind, barely escaping the Queen's forces. Now, as they drifted through the cold emptiness of space, Ethan couldn't help but feel lost. He wasn't sure where to go next. The clone's disappearance had left a hole in their mission, in their hearts. But what choice did they have? They had to survive. They had to find a way to defeat the Queen. Sarah, sitting quietly across from him, broke the silence. Her voice was soft but determined. "Ethan, we need answers. We don't even know why the Queen wants that clone so badly. We need to know what's going on." Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. "I know, but what do we even know? We've been running from her this whole time, but we don't understand what she's after. We don't even know what's special about that clone." Sarah leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "Exactly. That clone wasn't just any alien. There's something more, something the Queen wants that badly. We need to find out what it is." Ethan stared at the star map in front of him. They had no clear destination, no safe place to hide. But Sarah was right. If they were ever going to stop the Queen, they had to understand why she was after the clone. There had to be more to it than just ownership. The ship's display flickered and a small, unfamiliar signal appeared on the radar. Ethan's eyes narrowed. It wasn't a military ship, it wasn't even a commercial vessel, it was something else, something hidden. "That's not a random signal," Ethan muttered. "It's a call." "Do you think it's the Queen?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with concern. "I don't know, but we can't ignore it. Let's go check it out." Ethan set the course for the signal's origin. The ship's engines roared to life again and they moved through the stars, the darkness swallowing them whole. The ship's movements felt almost like a dream. The silence was too loud, the tension too thick. He kept his focus on the radar, waiting for something to change, for something to reveal itself. As they neared the source of the signal, the ship's lights flickered once again. The signal was growing stronger, clearer. And then, a shape appeared, an old, derelict station floating in the middle of an asteroid field. The station was ancient, its metal surface scarred and rusted, as if it had been abandoned for centuries. Yet the signal was still coming from inside. Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. Something about this place felt wrong, like they were walking into a trap. But they were too close now. They had to go inside. The ship's landing gears screeched as they touched down on the station's surface. The doors slid open, and they stepped out into the eerie, dim light. The station's corridors were dark, with flickering lights overhead. The air was stale, like it hadn't been breathed in years. "Stay close," Ethan warned, his voice low. "Something's not right here." As they made their way through the abandoned hallways, the silence pressed in on them, suffocating. Then, they heard it. A soft mechanical whirring sound coming from deeper within the station. They followed the noise, moving cautiously, until they came to a large locked door. A control panel beside it flickered with life, but the button to open, the door was broken, the wires exposed. Ethan moved forward, inspecting it. "I can hack into it," Sarah said, pulling out a small device from her bag. She attached it to the panel and began working on the wires. Within moments, the door slid open with a low, grinding noise. The room beyond was massive, a cavernous space filled with strange technology. Old machines lined the walls, but in the center of the room, there was something that took their breath away. A large floating pod suspended in the air, surrounded by humming lights. Inside the pod, a figure lay still, its form unmistakable. It was another clone. But this one was different. Its skin was a darker shade, its features more refined, and there was something almost regal about its presence. This is the Queen's true clone," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. Ethan's heart raced. They had found the key to the Queen's obsession. This was the source of her power, the reason she would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. But then something moved. The clone in the pod stirred, its eyes opening slowly. It blinked, and for the first time it looked directly at Ethan. A sharp, knowing smile curled across its lips. "You've come for me," it said, its voice echoing in the empty space. Ethan took a step back. You're the Queen's real clone, aren't you?" The clone nodded, its smile widening. "I am more than just a clone, I am her creation, yes, but I am also the key to her power. The Queen will stop at nothing to bring me back. She cannot survive without me." Ethan felt his stomach twist. The Queen's power came from this clone. Without it, she was weak. With it, she could rule over everything. "We need to destroy it," Sarah said urgently. "If we destroy this clone, the Queen will lose her power." But the clone's smile didn't fade. "Destroy me, and you destroy the Queen, but you will also destroy the only hope this universe has. For I am not just her creation, I am the only one who can stop her." Ethan was stunned. The clone was offering something more than just destruction. It was offering salvation, but at a cost. Before he could respond, the lights of the station flickered violently. The station groaned, shaking under a heavy force. A voice filled the air, cold and commanding. "You found my secret," the Queen's voice echoed. "But now, you will pay the price for stealing from me." The ship's alarms blared. The Queen was here. The entire station shook as if it were alive, groaning under the weight of something terrible. Ethan's heart raced as he turned toward the floating clone in the center of the room. The Queen's voice echoed through the station like a thunderclap, her words dripping with menace. "You think you can stop me? You think you can destroy what I've built?" Foolish humans. The clone, still hovering in its pod, closed its eyes for a moment, as if gathering its strength. Then it spoke again, its voice calm but filled with a quiet power. "The Queen cannot be destroyed by force. If you want to stop her, you must understand what she is." Ethan was barely listening. He could feel the ground tremble under his feet, the air thick with the sense of impending doom. The Queen was coming, and she was furious. "We don't have much time," Sarah said urgently, gripping Ethan's arm. "If we don't act now, we'll never have another chance." Ethan nodded, his mind racing. The Queen's forces were closing in on them, the station's walls trembling as if something massive was just outside. They had no escape, no backup, and no time left. If they didn't act, they would all die in the cold void of space with nothing to show for their fight. "We need to get to the control room," the clone said, its voice softer now, almost a whisper. "That is where the Queen's power is anchored. Destroy the core, and you destroy her." The air grew colder, and the lights flickered, casting long shadows across the station's walls. It felt like the very fabric of reality was bending, threatening to collapse. "We'll destroy it," Ethan said, his voice steady, even though doubt gnawed at him. "But we need a plan. We can't just walk in and hope it works." The clone's eyes opened, its gaze sharp and focused. "I can guide you, I can show you the path, but you must move quickly. The Queen is already here." As if to confirm its words, a loud crash echoed from deep within the station. The walls shook violently, and then through the crackling speakers, the Queen's voice rang out again. "I've been watching you. You think you're clever? You think you can defeat me? But you have no idea what you're dealing with." Ethan turned to Sarah, his face grim. "We need to move. Now." The clone led them through the winding, deserted hallways of the station. The station, once a place of hidden secrets, now felt like a maze of traps. The walls seemed to close in around them as they hurried, the faint sound of footsteps echoing from the shadows behind them. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled once more, and a huge explosion rocked the station. The lights went out, plunging them into darkness. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps coming toward them. The Queen's forces were closing in. "We don't have much time," the clone said, urgency in its voice. "We need to reach the core before she does." Ethan's mind raced. The core was the heart of the station, and it was where the Queen's power was concentrated. If they could destroy it, they might have a chance of ending her reign. But what if they failed? What if the Queen's power was too great? The clone turned a corner and they found themselves facing a large reinforced door. This was it, the final step. Beyond that door lay the core, and with it the key to the Queen's power. Ethan didn't hesitate. He moved forward, slamming his hand against the control panel. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a massive chamber, its walls lined with strange, pulsating technology. In the center of the room, a floating orb of light glowed, casting eerie shadows across the walls. "This is it," the clone said, its voice filled with a strange reverence. "The Queen's heart." Ethan stepped forward, his pulse racing. He could feel the weight of everything pressing down on him. Every choice, every sacrifice, everything had led to this moment. But just as he reached for the controls to destroy the core, a voice cold and full of fury rang out from the shadows. "You really think you can win?" The Queen's voice boomed, sending a chill through the room. "I created you. I gave you life. And now you want to destroy me?" Ethan spun around, eyes wide with shock. The Queen stood there, her form dark and imposing, her eyes glowing with an unnatural power. She stepped forward, her footsteps echoing. Through the chamber, the clone's eyes flickered to Ethan. "You must do it now. If you don't, she will destroy us all." Ethan felt his hands shake as he grabbed the weapon by his side. He had no choice now. They had come too far. The Queen's power had to be stopped, even if it meant sacrificing everything. As the Queen raised her hand, dark energy swirling around her fingertips, Ethan rushed forward. The clone moved in front of him, standing as a shield. "Do it," it whispered, its voice soft but filled with resolve. With a single determined motion, Ethan activated the weapon. A powerful blast of energy shot toward the core, and the room erupted in blinding light. For a moment, everything stood still. Then the explosion tore through the station, sending shockwaves through the air. The Queen screamed, her form disintegrating as the core collapsed. The walls crumbled around them, and the entire station began to collapse into the void. Ethan and Sarah barely managed to escape as the station was torn apart, the sound of its destruction echoing in the emptiness of space. But as they drifted in the wreckage, a silence settled over them. The Queen was gone. Her power was shattered. But in the end, they knew the fight was never truly over. There were always more enemies, more battles to be fought. But for now, they had won. And for the first time in a long time, they could breathe. The wreckage of the station drifted in the silent vastness of space, pieces of metal and twisted technology scattered across the emptiness. Ethan sat in the cockpit of their ship, his hands gripping the controls, but his mind was elsewhere. The battle was over. The Queen was gone. Her reign of terror had ended with a final, fiery explosion. But for Ethan, the victory felt hollow. The air around them was thick with silence, the usual hum of the ship almost comforting in its steady rhythm. Sarah sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the wreckage they had left behind, her face tired but resolute. Neither of them spoke for a long time. There was nothing left to say, but both of them could feel the weight of what they had lost. "Do you think it's really over?" Sarah asked quietly, breaking the silence. Ethan sighed deeply, looking out at the stars that stretched endlessly before them. "I don't know. The Queen's gone, but that doesn't mean the fight is finished. There are always more forces, more threats. This war, it's bigger than just one battle." "But we've won a piece of it," Sarah said, her voice steady. "We've taken away her power. That matters. Ethan nodded slowly, but his eyes never left the stars. Maybe, but at what cost? The clone's face flashed in his mind. The sacrifice. The promise it had made to protect them. Ethan clenched his fists, feeling the burn of regret and pain. He had lost something important, something irreplaceable, but he also knew deep down that the clone had made that choice for a reason. It had given them a chance to stop the Queen, a chance for the galaxy to breathe. We did what we had to do, Sarah said softly, almost as if reading his thoughts. You know that. Ethan's thoughts were interrupted as the ship's computer beeped, pulling his attention back to the present. A message was incoming. He opened the transmission, and a familiar face appeared on the screen. It was a representative from the rebel faction, the one who had helped them, even if their alliance had been short-lived. But now the rebel leader had something different to offer. The voice that came through was calm, but there was a new sense of purpose. The Queen's defeat has sent ripples across the galaxy, the leader said, their voice steady. Many systems are rising up now that they see her empire has fallen. There's hope, Ethan. There's a chance for something new. Ethan sat up straighter. What does that mean for us? The rebel leader smiled slightly. It means we need you. Your story, your actions have inspired many. We need someone to lead, someone to help organize the resistance. You've shown us what humanity is capable of. You are the symbol of hope. Ethan blinked in surprise. I don't know if I'm the right person for that. Sarah turned to him, her eyes filled with an understanding he hadn't expected. Ethan, you've already led us. You've already fought. Maybe this is what you're meant to do. For a long moment, Ethan didn't speak. He didn't know if he could live up to what they were asking. Leading an entire resistance? He had never seen himself as a leader. He had just been trying to survive. But the truth was, he had led them to this point. He had made the difficult decisions. And for better or worse, the galaxy was looking to him for direction. All right, he said at last, his voice steady, but uncertain. I'll do it. I'll help lead. The transmission ended, leaving him alone with his thoughts again. Sarah turned to him, a small smile on her face. You've always had it in you, Ethan. You just needed to see it for yourself. Ethan smiled back, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. Maybe. As the ship continued its course through the stars, the weight of the galaxy's future felt even heavier. But there was something else there, too. Something that hadn't been there before. Hope. The end of one empire didn't mean the end of everything. There was a chance now for something better, something new. It wouldn't be easy, and the road ahead was still full of dangers. But for the first time in a long time, Ethan believed that they could make a difference. He thought about the clone, about its sacrifice, and about everything that had led them to this moment. The legacy of their victory wasn't just about the Queen's defeat. It was about the lives they had saved, the futures they had given a chance, and it was about the promise that despite everything, humanity had found a way to fight back, to stand strong in the face of impossible odds. Ethan looked out the window at the stars once more, feeling a deep sense of peace settle over him. There was still so much to do, so much more they could accomplish, but for the first time he felt ready.